Mao Mao Movie Recap welcomes you. The most anticipated disaster movie has finally been released. Young Won is a government security officer and lives with his daughter, Kyung Min. Soon, the two of them will have to part ways. When Kyung Min goes abroad for her studies, not wanting her father to live alone, she doesn't want to go. Instead, she just wants to stay and pursue her dream of becoming a rapper. However, Young Won does not allow that to happen. As a father, he always wants his daughter to have a promising future. Becoming a rapper is really tough to succeed in. Therefore, at all costs, even if he has to sell his house, he is determined to send Kyung Min abroad to study. This decision causes a conflict between them. On the way to the airport, they don't say a word to each other. Just at that moment, they receive a warning that the bridge ahead is covered with heavy fog. Visibility has dropped to just 3 meters, making driving hazardous. The authorities advise taking an alternative route. However, this is the only road to the airport, so the main character decides to proceed despite the warning. Unexpectedly, this turns out to be his worst decision. Before reaching the bridge, Young Won stops at a gas station, but when the attendant comes over to collect payment, he realizes that this person might just be pretending to be an attendant, because no real attendant would wear a bunch of keys on their belt. Thinking he's a fraud, he decides not to pay and drives off. This leaves Young Yun feeling furious. At the airport, there are two sisters, Mi Ran and Yu Ra, who have just arrived and are preparing to head home. Having just landed, they don't know that the bridge is covered in thick fog, so they proceed to drive as usual. As they reach the bridge, the fog blocks their view, so they can't drive quickly. At that moment, a supercar speeds past them at an incredible speed. The driver of that car is a YouTuber, who was dared by fans to cross the foggy bridge at high speed. But unexpectedly, something happens in the middle of the bridge. Driving at high speed with limited visibility, he almost collides with another car, causing his car to stop in the middle of the road. However, the real disaster is just beginning. The cars behind can't react in time, resulting in a chain collision, one car after another. The scene on the bridge becomes utter chaos. A tanker carrying toxic gas also overturns in the accident. The bridge is now completely paralyzed. News of the collision quickly spreads. At this moment, Young Yun is being scolded by his boss for letting a customer skip payment. Upon hearing that the bridge is blocked, Young Yun thinks that the main character and his daughter must also be stuck. So, he drives his tow truck onto the bridge to go collect his money. And indeed, as he expected, Young Won and his daughter were also on the bridge. In front of them was a military vehicle, carrying many guard dogs. After a collision, the dogs escaped outside, causing the soldiers to panic. They immediately ordered the blocking of all signals on the bridge, which prevented the main character from calling for help. At this point, his daughter noticed an injured dog and wanted to help it. But just then, Young Won noticed and stopped her. Then the main character approached the soldiers to ask what was going on. Unexpectedly, out of curiosity, he was locked into the vehicle. Inside the vehicle was Dr. Yang. It seemed like something unusual was happening on the bridge. He was controlling the dogs with a computer. When the doctor pressed the activation button, the dogs instantly went wild, then charged towards a soldier by the military vehicle. Seeing the dogs, he immediately jumped onto the truck, and the dogs chased after him. But back at the doctor's location, he noticed one dog didn't charge forward. It was even the most dangerous one, just standing still in place. With no other choice, he had to turn off the control device. The dogs then returned to normal. The soldier quickly closed the truck's door. Afterward, a military helicopter arrived. They intended to take all the dogs and eliminate the lead dog. At first, everything went smoothly. The container holding the dogs was gradually lifted into the helicopter. But unexpectedly, at that moment, the doctor found the chip from the lead dog. It turned out, when Kyung Min saw it was injured, it had removed its own chip. That's why, when all the other dogs were controlled, it was not. At this point, the doctor realized the problem. But it was too late. As the container neared the helicopter, the lead dog suddenly appeared on the container roof and pounced on the soldier. It quickly took down everyone on the helicopter, causing the helicopter to lose control and crash onto the bridge. Upon hearing the explosion, all the dogs in the area lost control. They became extremely aggressive, breaking out of the cage, and attacked anyone they encountered. At this point, one dog pounced towards the doctor, causing him to drop the computer used to control the dogs. Luckily, Young Won, who was nearby, acted quickly to help, pulling him and his daughter into the car. Meanwhile, chaos continued on the bridge, as everyone scrambled to find a way to escape from the dogs. Fortunately, many managed to get onto a bus. Among them were the sisters Mi Ran. Even though they got on the bus, Young Won's group couldn't escape, because the vehicle was damaged from the collision and couldn't start anymore. The 4 of them were forced to stay inside the car. At this moment, Young Won demanded that the doctor tell the truth about where these dogs came from. He recounted everything, revealing that these weren't ordinary guard dogs. They were secretly researched and trained by the military, with the aim of selling them to the US to fight terrorism. As a result, they were extremely aggressive and seemed nearly unstoppable. But during the research, mistakes were made, so the military was forced to eliminate all of these dogs. Unexpectedly, the incident happened on the bridge. The most dangerous one was the lead dog, coded E9. It was the mother of many other dogs, but they trained it by killing all of its offspring, which made E9 extremely violent. In reality, it wasn't hunting but seeking revenge. Upon hearing this, the main character was furious and immediately called his superiors. At this time, Inspector Kim had just learned about the issue. and told Young-won to stay calm, as this matter was actually connected to them. He himself was the one who signed the order to begin the research on these dogs. So if this was exposed, he'd also be in trouble. He therefore requested that he keep this a secret. Right then, another explosion happened on the bridge, which disrupted their call. Immediately after, a bus carrying survivors passed by. Seeing this, Young-won told everyone to get on it. The group quickly exited their car and got onto the bus. As soon as the bus started moving, a terrifying explosion occurred, causing the bridge's cables to snap one by one. The bridge immediately collapsed entirely, splitting into two sections. As a result, the bus could no longer proceed, while the dogs continued lurking around it. The main character took out his security badge to reassure everyone. He promised to help them escape, on the condition that they follow his instructions. At headquarters, another special forces team was dispatched. Their mission was to get the survivors to safety and eliminate all the aggressive dogs. But when they arrived on the bridge, they discovered the dogs were gone, leading them to believe the dogs had fled in fear. Soon enough, the team reached the bus and asked everyone to leave the bus. However, they didn't realize they had walked into the dogs' trap. As they moved a bit further, the cars nearby suddenly turned on their signals, fearing the dogs would notice. The soldiers split up and took alternate routes, unaware that the signal lights had actually been triggered by the dogs. With the protective forces now thinned out, the dogs launched their attack. By the time everyone realized the danger, it was too late. The special forces were quickly wiped out by the dogs, and everyone else could only run for their lives. However, only a handful managed to escape. Those who made it back onto the bus were now only 8, 2 of whom were injured. Mi ran and an elderly woman. After some discussion, they decided to turn the bus back towards the bridge entrance. But upon checking, Young-won discovered the bus key was missing. Fortunately, Young-yun had a spare set of keys with him, which they quickly tried. They successfully started the bus. Back at headquarters, Kim realized the special forces had failed, causing him great distress, as they had lost so much, yet still couldn't eliminate all of the dogs. He decided to abandon the rescue operation, leaving Young-won's group to find their own way out. Young-won kept calling for help, his voice hoarse, but no one answered. At this point, the bus was blocked by other vehicles, while the dogs continued lurking outside, making it impossible for them to leave. Realizing they'd been abandoned by the government, Young-won told everyone they had to come up with a plan to escape. At that moment, his daughter spoke up. They decided to set a trap for the dogs. At this point, the bus doors were opened. Everyone hid under the bus compartments, and as soon as the dogs entered the bus, they would pull the rope to close the doors and trap them. But just then, the elderly woman who was severely injured passed away, leaving her husband heartbroken. At that moment, the dogs fell into the trap. Seeing the last dog enter the bus, they quickly pulled the rope to lock the door, then climbed out together. However, someone still needed to stay behind to hold the door shut, and the elderly woman's husband volunteered. Having just lost his wife, he no longer wished to live, so he willingly sacrificed himself. Now, only 6 survivors remained. Now, they had to reach the end of the bridge at all costs. Even though the path ahead was filled with toxic gas, this was their only way to escape. Young-won told everyone to get on the dog transport truck, while Young-yun would drive to pull everyone along. But unfortunately, he had forgotten his keys on the bus. With no other option, they had to retrieve the keys. So, the whole group had to take the risk. Young-yun hid under the front of the bus, while the sisters Mi ran used golf clubs to break the windows. As the dogs rushed out, Young-won acted as bait, so Young-yun could grab the keys. After preparing, they acted quickly. The bus door was smashed open, and the dogs immediately rushed towards the main character. Seeing this, Young-yun crawled out to get the keys. Unexpectedly, E9 was not fooled by the trap. It waited for Young-yun on the bus, forcing him to run for his life. After grabbing the keys, at this moment, the bridge continued to collapse. Seeing other dogs in danger, E9 rushed to save them. At that point, Young-won was inside the truck, and he was about to fall into the river. Seeing her father in danger, Kyung-min jumped out of the vehicle, carrying a crane hook and leaping toward her dad. E9 also fell into the river trying to save its kind. The female lead risked her life, jumping off the bridge. At this point, everyone thought she had sacrificed herself, but she hadn't. Kyung-min managed to hook the crane onto the truck. As soon as Young-yun received the signal, he began to pull them up. After much effort, the father and daughter finally escaped from danger. They then continued to head toward the end of the bridge, ignoring the collapsing bridge behind them. After passing through the toxic smoke, they saw sunlight ahead. At this point, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. After everything, they had survived and returned. At the end of the bridge, many people were waiting, including Inspector Kim. Seeing the main character alive, he looked genuinely happy. But Young-won had completely lost faith in this superior. After all this, he saw the man's true character. He walked up and gave him a punch. Then he exposed his crimes to the media, leaving the man speechless and humiliated. In the end, he left in silence. Young-won turned back and hugged his daughter. But under the bridge, E9 was still alive. It had even saved another dog. This means that the disaster isn't over yet. The movie ends here. Goodbye, and see you in the next movie. Goodbye.